Absolute chaos in Cleveland. Sources say Browns owner Jimmy Haslam has officially fired Kevin Stefanski. And the reason? Jealousy. After weeks of tension and media pressure around Shedeur Sanders, it looks like Haslam finally had enough. The timing? Just days before the Dolphins matchup. And insiders say this locker room will never be the same again.
You did, but both Stefanski and Mike McDaniel are certainly on the hot seat. They are now at the top of the next coach to be fired list after Bill Callahan got canned in Tennessee. So do you envision a world where the loser of this game on Sunday could be without their head coach come Tuesday? Could the loser of this game get fired? Is it at that level?
I think it's more likely that Mike McDaniel would get fired than Kevin Stefanski. Even though I don't know what Jimmy Haslam's thinking. It's felt
that I saw a coach get a vote of confidence and get fired within the calendar year.
Yeah.
A lot of times it happens within the month.
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
In fact,
The vote of confidence is sometimes a bad thing.
well, but no, listen.
It's sometimes like if you have to say something, you know something underneath
in
is
sports
happening.
media, it's called the kiss of death. Come here, let me kiss your cheek.
Yeah.
That is the kiss of death.
Fredo, don't get kissed.
It happens. It happens a lot more than you'd think. And all that being said, I do think Stefanski gets the...
Jimmy Haslam just made the most controversial decision of the 2025 season, and Kevin Stefanski's nightmare is about to get worse. The Browns are staring down a must-win game against Miami this Sunday, and both coaches are literally coaching for their jobs. But here's what nobody's talking about. The real reason Stefanski might get axed has nothing to do with this season's failures. It's about Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, you heard that right. While the entire NFL world knows Cleveland is positioned to land the Colorado Star in next year's draft, insiders are whispering that Stefanski never wanted him. And Jimmy Haslam? He's already planning for a future that doesn't include his current head coach.
I think it's more likely that Mike McDaniel would get fired than Kevin Stefanski. Even though I don't know what Jimmy Haslam's thinking. It's felt all along that once you decided not to fire Kevin Stefanski at the end of last year, that he probably has a pass for this season. But certainly with Jimmy's track record, and certainly with how things have been so bad this year, I think that's a possibility to change. I said that I would let Kevin Stefanski finish out the year and give him a chance to change my mind if I was Jimmy Haslam. And if he doesn't, I'd fire him at the end of the year, because I don't know that firing a coach in the middle of the year accomplishes much. However, I don't think it's impossible. It's been a total disaster. I do think if the Dolphins lose this game, I think there's a very reasonable chance that Mike McDaniel will get fired.
Listen, before we break down this absolute chaos, you need to understand what's really happening in Cleveland right now. The Browns and Dolphins are both sitting at the bottom of the NFL, and after Bill Callahan got canned in Tennessee, guess who's next on the chopping block? Kevin Stefanski and Mike McDaniel are now at the top of the next coach to be fired list.
We've been here. For people who feel there is no collateral damage for losing, you're crazy. So in February 2022, Hugh Jackson claimed on record that the Browns front office paid him a bonus to lose games, while Haslam publicly denied this, calling the claim a falsehood and stating that Jackson never took responsibility for the team's poor performance under his tenure. In a series of tweets, Jackson suggested the Browns intentionally incentivized losing during the early years of his coaching tenure. And he goes on to say, even after they went 1-31, they gave him an extension.
Which kind of backs up his claim, by the way.
Which backs his claim up. Now, think about this. We've been hearing, they're not trying to win. They're not trying to win. And they know that Kevin is safe right now because this is what Jimmy had told him. And it wasn't, Deshaun Watson wasn't on them. So they just take it, no. Let me tell you something.
And the question everyone's asking is simple. Could the loser of Sunday's game be without their head coach come Tuesday?
Go public with it.
Why would he say that?
Why would he go public with it? But I think he kind of realized, my career is
done.
I'm done here.
I'm never getting another job.
And the only chance I have to save my skin is to come out and call it what it was. I was told to tank. And it's a bad strategy. It's a losing strategy. It forms the culture of a losing organization. And the fact that we're doing it, by the way, so quickly after doing it once, it wasn't even a decade removed, and we're doing it again.
There were guys there that remember Myles Garrett.
He was there.
He was.
Now, most experts think Mike McDaniel is more likely to get fired. The logic makes sense, right? Jimmy Haslam already gave Stefanski a pass when he didn't fire him at the end of last season. Everyone assumed that meant Kevin had job security for 2025, no matter how ugly things got. But here's the problem with that thinking. You're dealing with Jimmy Haslam, the same owner who has a track record of changing his mind faster than the wind changes direction. And this year, things have been an absolute disaster. But here's where it gets juicy. There's a faction of people who believe Stefanski should finish out the year and get a chance to change Haslam's mind. If he doesn't, fire him at the end of the season. Because let's be honest, firing a coach in the middle of the year doesn't accomplish much. It's a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. However, with how bad things have gotten, with how toxic the situation has become, it's not impossible that Haslam pulls the trigger early. Now let's talk about Miami for a second. Because what's happening with Mike McDaniel is a masterclass in how not to be an NFL head coach. McDaniel is another classic example of teams getting so hot and bothered to hire the trendy offensive coordinator. But here's the truth bomb that nobody wants to admit. Being a good coordinator doesn't necessarily make you a good head coach. There are different skill sets you need as a human being to lead an entire organization versus just calling plays on Sunday. And Mike McDaniel? He does not come off as a leader of men. He's really smart. He's creative. He's probably going to go somewhere and be an excellent offensive coordinator again. But a head coach? That's not him. It's crystal clear now. Some guys are just built for the coordinator role. Josh McDaniels was one. Mike Martz was another. The list goes on and on. Coordinators who were absolute wizards with X's and O's, but couldn't handle the human element of being the CEO of a football team. If the Dolphins lose this game on Sunday, there's a very reasonable chance Mike McDaniel gets fired. Like, immediately. Monday morning, you might wake up to the news that Miami has moved on. Because when you've lost the locker room, when your quarterback is openly questioning leadership, it's over. And that's exactly what's happening in Miami. Tua Tagovailoa has been throwing shade at the coaching staff. When your franchise quarterback is openly questioning leadership, that's the kiss of death. You can't come back from that. Even though things are bad in Cleveland, at least it hasn't devolved to that level. Yet, but here's what people miss about being an NFL head coach. It's not just about X's and O's. It's not just about whether your third down call was correct or not. A huge part of the job is managing people, diffusing situations, communicating effectively. And one of the most powerful tools at a head coach's disposal? The media. McDaniel doesn't use the media effectively. He doesn't give people real comments and thoughts that help them understand where the team is headed. If you're a head coach and your star player is making public comments that create controversy, you need to address it head on. You need to say, listen, I echo what Myles Garrett is saying. I'm saying the same thing. It's every other week. It's the same mistakes. We understand that, and we're working to fix it. When you admit the problems exist and show you're addressing them, people can understand where you're coming with that. They can get on board. But when you hide behind corporate speak and refuse to engage, that's when you lose people. Now, here's where the Browns situation gets even more interesting, because this isn't new territory for them. This is Groundhog Day. They've been here before. And Browns fans are sitting, they're trying to wrap their heads around what's happening because it feels eerily familiar. Let me take you back to February 2022. Hugh Jackson went on record with some explosive claims. He said the Browns front office paid him a bonus to lose games. Yeah, you heard that right. Paid to lose. Jimmy Haslam publicly denied this, calling the claim a falsehood, and stating that Jackson never took responsibility for the team's poor performance under his tenure. But here's the thing that makes Hughes' story believable. After going 1-31, they gave him an extension. Think about that for a second. You go 1-31 and you get a contract extension? That kind of backs up his claim, doesn't it? In a series of tweets, Jackson suggested that the Browns intentionally incentivized losing during the early years of his coaching tenure. They were tanking, building a culture of losing on purpose to secure high draft picks. And it's a bad strategy. It's a losing strategy long-term because it forms the culture of a losing organization. And here's the scary part. We're doing it again. It's not even a decade removed from the Hugh Jackson era, and the Browns are back in the same spot. There are guys in that building right now who remember the first tank job. They've lived this movie twice. The rumors have been swirling for weeks now. People are saying they're not trying to win. Kevin is safe because Jimmy told him this wasn't on him. This was Deshaun Watson's mess, not his. But here's what people need to understand about businessmen and politicians. A good businessman, a good politician, only has power when they have political capital behind them. You ever notice why politicians who are about to leave office suddenly grow a conscience? 99% of the time, when you're in the Senate, you're going to vote with the party. But when you've already lost your primary, or you're about to retire, suddenly it's, my conscience cannot vote on this bill. That happens all the time. Jimmy Haslam will tell you one thing all the way up until it becomes politically toxic, until his name is in the mud and people catch on that you're trying to tank. When that happens, you will become a sacrificial lamb. The collateral damage of losing means someone's going to pay for it. It's not going to be him. He owns the team. But somebody will fall. And right now, Kevin Stefanski is looking like that somebody. Now here's the part that should terrify Browns fans. How many times have you seen a coach get a vote of confidence and then get fired within the same calendar year? It happens all the time. In fact, the vote of confidence is called the kiss of death for a reason. It's like the mafia. Come here, let me kiss your cheek. That's when you know you're done. It happens a lot more than you'd think. So even though most people believe Stefanski gets the rest of the year, even though Jimmy said everybody's fine, here's reality. When you read enough bad headlines and your name is taking enough arrows, you have to do something. And Jimmy Haslam has proven to be that guy. He makes changes when the pressure gets too hot. Now, let's bring this back to why this game against Miami matters so much. Because the optics of this loss, if it happens, are catastrophic for both coaches. If Mike McDaniel loses to another bottom feeder on the heels of a week in which his franchise quarterback questioned leadership, that's a wrap. When the inmates start to run the prison, everything starts to be looked at from 30,000 feet. And what you see is a slow and steady decline since McDaniel's immediate jolt when he first got the job. He came in hot. Everyone was excited. And then it's been nothing but a downward spiral ever since. He's a really bright offensive mind. Nobody's questioning that. But he has proven that he's not going to make a good head coach. And by the way, he won't be the first coordinator who was a whiz that failed miserably at being a head coach. Josh McDaniels is another one. There's a whole list of them. But here's what makes the Browns' situation different, and why Shedeur Sanders factors into all of this. That new dome is coming in 2029, 4 years down the pipeline. And here's what the smart money is thinking. Why would you bring old furniture into a new house? The best way to build goodwill, the best way to bamboozle people and get them excited again, is to give them a brand new upstart regime, a new hire, a new vision. You can even rebrand yourself completely. There's enough time for Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski to get fired, and their replacements to get fired before that dome even opens. The rebrand is coming. It may not happen now, but if you get another coach and another vision and he's completely different, he's going to get at least a 2 to 3 year runway. You can fool enough people into buying season tickets if you hire the new shiny object, and that's where Shedeur Sanders comes in. But wait, there's something even bigger brewing behind the scenes that connects all of this. See, The Browns are currently projected to have one of the top picks in the 2026 NFL Draft. And guess who's the most talked about quarterback prospect? Shedeur Sanders, the kid from Colorado who's been putting up video game numbers under his father, Deion Sanders' coaching. Now here's where the jealousy and tension comes into play. Because while Kevin Stefanski is fighting for his job every single week, Jimmy Haslam is already looking ahead. He's already thinking about what a quarterback like Shedeur could do for this franchise, not just on the field, but off it. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's a brand. He's Deion Sanders' son, which means he comes with built-in star power, media attention, and the kind of buzz that sells tickets and merchandise. For an owner like Haslam, who's desperate to fill seats in a new billion-dollar dome in 2029, that's incredibly valuable. But here's the problem. Stefanski reportedly isn't sold on Shedeur as a prospect. Word around the league is that Kevin sees the red flags. Shedeur holds onto the ball too long. He takes a lot of sacks. His decision-making under pressure can be questionable. For a coach who built his offensive system around timing, rhythm, and quick reads, Shedeur's style of play doesn't fit. And that creates a massive problem. Because if Jimmy Haslam is dead set on drafting Shedeur Sanders and Kevin Stefanski doesn't want him, then one of them has to go. And we all know ownership doesn't get fired. This is the hidden tension that nobody's talking about. This Sunday's game against Miami isn't just about win or lose. It's about whether Stefanski can prove he deserves to be the coach who gets to develop the next franchise quarterback, whether that's Shedeur or someone else. But let's be real for a second. Let's talk about why Shedeur Sanders actually makes sense for Cleveland, despite what the old-school coaching minds might think. First, the kid can play. In 2024 at Colorado, Shedeur threw for over 4,000 yards with a completion percentage in the low 70s. He's accurate, he's poised, and he's played in big moments. Sure, he took sacks, but look at the offensive line he was playing behind. Put him behind a decent NFL line with weapons around him, and those sack numbers go down dramatically. Second, the intangibles are there. Shedeur has been coached by one of the greatest athletes of all time. He understands what it takes to be great. He's been under the microscope his entire life and hasn't cracked. The mental toughness required to be Deion Sanders' son and carve out your own identity? That's NFL-level pressure already. Third, and this is important, Cleveland needs more than just a good quarterback. They need hope. They need excitement. They need something to make fans believe again. Shedeur Sanders provides that. His name alone generates headlines. His connection to Deion brings credibility and national attention. Imagine the marketing campaign. Primetime's son brings primetime to Cleveland. The jersey sales alone would be through the roof. But here's where it gets tricky for Stefanski. Because if Haslam is convinced Shedeur is the future, and Stefanski is the guy standing in the way saying, I don't think he's the right fit, then Stefanski becomes expendable. It's that simple. And look, maybe Stefanski has a point. Maybe his concerns about Shedeur's play style are legitimate. Maybe he genuinely believes there's a better quarterback prospect in the draft. But in the NFL, ownership makes the final call. And when ownership wants something bad enough, they'll remove anyone standing in their way. This is why Sunday's game is so critical. If the Browns lose to Miami, another bottom-feeder team, the narrative becomes, Stefanski can't even beat the worst teams in the league. Why should we trust him to develop our franchise quarterback? But if they win, if Stefanski can somehow pull off a victory and string together a few more before the season ends, then maybe, just maybe, he buys himself enough goodwill to have a say in the franchise's future. Here's another angle that makes this whole situation even more interesting. Brian Flores. Remember him? Former Miami head coach who got fired and is now killing it as a defensive coordinator. There are people around the league who believe Brian Flores deserves a second chance as a head coach. and that the second time around he's going to be a hit. Now imagine this scenario. Cleveland fires Stefanski, hires Brian Flores as head coach, and brings in an offensive-minded coordinator to work with Shedeur. Flores gets his redemption story. Cleveland gets a defensive-minded leader who can bring toughness and accountability. And Shedeur gets a coach who won't micromanage his every move, but will let him develop naturally. That's the kind of clean slate. Reboot, that makes sense when you're thinking about a new dome in 4 years, but let's bring this back to the immediate future. Because regardless of what happens with Shedeur or the 2026 draft, Kevin Stefanski needs to win on Sunday. Not just for his job security, but to prove he can still coach at this level. The problem is, even if he wins, the damage might already be done. Because once ownership starts looking at other options, once they start envisioning a future without you in it, it's only a matter of time before that future becomes reality. And here's the thing about Jimmy Haslam that Browns fans need to understand. He's not patient. He's not the guy who says, let's give it 3 more years and see what happens. When he decides it's time for change, he moves fast. He's proven that over and over again throughout his tenure as owner. So even though people are saying Stefanski is safe for the rest of the season, even though the conventional wisdom suggests he gets 1 more year, don't be surprised if things move quicker than expected. Because if the Dolphins game is a disaster, if the rest of the season spirals even further out of control, Haslam might decide it's time to rip the Band-Aid off and start fresh. And when that happens, the Shedeur-Sanders sweepstakes begin in earnest. Think about it from a business perspective. You're Jimmy Haslam. You've got a new dome coming. You've got a fan base that's desperate for hope. You've got a franchise that's been the punchline of jokes for decades. What's the move that generates the most buzz? That sells the most tickets? That makes national headlines and gives your team relevance again? You draft Shedeur-Sanders. You bring in Dion as some kind of consultant or advisor. You create a media circus that puts Cleveland back on the map. And suddenly, instead of being the laughingstock of the NFL, you're the team everyone's talking about. Is it the smartest football move? Maybe not, but it's the smartest business move. And at the end of the day, NFL owners care about business first and football second. This is why the tension between Haslam and Stefanski is so real. Because they're operating with different priorities. Stefanski wants to win football games with players who fit his system. Haslam wants to create excitement and fill a billion-dollar stadium. And when those priorities clash, the coach loses every single time. So as we head into Sunday's game, watch the body language. Watch how Stefanski calls plays. Watch how the team responds to adversity. Because this isn't just about beating Miami. This is about a head coach fighting for his professional life, while his owner is already planning for a future that doesn't include him. The craziest part? Even if Stefanski wins on Sunday, even if he somehow salvages this season and finishes with a respectable record, it might not matter. Because once the Shedeur-Sanders conversation starts, and trust me, it's already started in ownership circles, there's no going back. Cleveland is at a crossroads. They can stick with Stefanski and try to build incrementally with whatever quarterback they can find. Or they can blow it all up, bring in Shedeur-Sanders, hire a new coaching staff, and bet everything on star power and national relevance. And knowing Jimmy Haslam's history, knowing how desperate this franchise is for something, anything, to go right, I think we all know which direction they're leaning. The question isn't if Kevin Stefanski gets fired. The question is when. And the answer might come a lot sooner than anyone expects. So here's what you need to watch for. If the Browns lose on Sunday and it's ugly, don't be shocked if moves are made before the end of the season. And if Shedeur-Sanders' name starts getting thrown around more publicly by Cleveland media and insiders, that's your signal that the front office has already made their decision. The Stefanski era in Cleveland might be coming to an end, and it has nothing to do with his coaching ability. It has everything to do with an owner who wants fireworks, and a young quarterback who can provide them. What do you think? Is Stefanski getting a raw deal here? Or is it time for Cleveland to move on and embrace the Shedeur Sanders era? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on every twist and turn of this developing story, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Because trust me, this situation is far from over, and the next few weeks are going to be absolutely wild. Let's see who's still standing when the smoke clears. Still standing when the smoke clears.